You've set the rules and you've worked on your relationship between you and your students. But if your students aren't connected to one another, your classroom is not going to run the way you want it to. In this video, I'm going to show you practical, simple ways to embed social learning activities throughout your school day so your students will build strong peer-to-peer relationships and your classroom will feel like a true community. Here's what I believe is happening in our classrooms. Students are operating more as isolated individuals rather than members of a learning community. They don't know each other beyond surface levels and don't have as much emotional investment in their classroom's well-being or success. When you're surrounded by people you care about and who care about you, you naturally will consider the impact of your actions on the others. You have a stake in the collective success. And what's missing in many of our classrooms are those genuine relationships, the mutual respect, and the shared investment in everyone's learning. To build a classroom that truly works, we have to teach kids how to relate to others and contribute to the group. That's the role of social skills instruction. Explicitly teaching social skills will reduce behavior challenges, increase peer connections, and strengthen classroom culture. According to CASTLE, the Collaborative of Academic Social Emotional Learning, hundreds of studies involving more than 1 million students worldwide have consistently shown that when we teach social skills, when we help students learn and care about each other, build those relationships, everything else improves. There's a landmark study, a meta-analysis by Durlach, Weisberg, and colleagues published in Child Development. It shows that in the academic domain, students participating in social emotional learning programs show academic performance that's 11 percentile points higher than students who don't participate. Behavioral improvements. Students in SEL programs show decreased emotional distress, fewer discipline problems, and a significant reduction in bullying and aggression. They report feeling safer, more supported, and more connected to their school community. And very importantly, there are many teacher benefits. Here's some things that might surprise you. Teachers who implement social emotional learning report higher job satisfaction, less burnout, and feeling more effective in their jobs. So, how do we define social skills? I personally always think of social skills as the skills that help us connect with others. CASTLE provides a widely respected framework for supporting student growth. To make this broad area of social learning, they identify 5 core competencies as shown in this CASTLE wheel here. They are self-awareness, social awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, and relationship skills. For the purposes of this presentation, we are going to focus on the first 3, which are self-awareness, self-management, and social awareness. It's also about understanding how these things influence our own behaviors and beliefs. Having self-awareness is when you can express your own likes and your dislikes, and it's also when you have an accurate self-perception. When you have a lack of self-awareness, you have a difficulty identifying or labeling your emotions, and you have a hard time expressing them. Self-management, how we manage our emotions, our thoughts, our actions as we work towards goals. This includes how we cope with stress, anxiety, and how we persevere through challenges. Self-awareness is how we think about ourselves and who we are. It's how we understand our culture, our thoughts, our feelings, and also what we think we are capable of. What a lack of self-management could look like is when someone is cheating, maybe because they can't handle losing or they get very upset, a lot of emotional outbursts, and just acting on impulse instead of thinking things through. Social awareness is how we understand others, how we learn to take on different perspectives, and have empathy for people, even when they are different from us. It includes understanding what's happening around us and how that can influence us and how we create and feel a sense of belonging. Having social awareness is when we are able to take on the perspective of others and therefore understand them better, which then allows us to show empathy, to show compassion. When we have a lack of social awareness, it might look like making rude remarks when somebody has a different opinion. It might look like I'm just not picking up those nonverbal cues like facial expressions or other types of body language. We need the kids to not just have a strong relationship and be comfortable with the teacher, but be comfortable with their peers in their classroom as well. Teaching the social skills to make this happen is what is going to reduce the behavior challenges much more than any external systems. So, if you're trying to reduce behavior challenges, start by focusing on connections. A classroom where kids feel respected, they feel seen, and part of a group is where the disruptive behavior is just naturally going to decrease. So, now that we've looked at why the classroom community is so important, how do we integrate this social learning into an already jam packed day? Let's go through different parts of the school day and see how we can integrate social skills into each part. Morning meetings, or the beginning of the class, or homeroom. This is the time in which you want to set the tone for the day or the class period. It may involve setting the agenda and preparing your students for what they need to know and what they need to do. This is the perfect opportunity to get started on the right foot, get kids to acknowledge each other, and get into a positive mindset by focusing on community. Here are some activities well suited for morning meeting. Feelings charts can help children identify and express their emotions. So it just entails having different emotional expressions. You could have faces, you could just have colors or some other type of graphic. Basically, what you want to do is make that abstract feeling more concrete and therefore more accessible to the student. So you can start the day with a feelings check in, and it can really help children develop that emotional vocabulary and that ease in which they can express themselves. It will let you know their state of mind from the beginning. And it can also open up some conversations about what we can do, some coping strategies, and as well as positive emotions. We can celebrate that and show the whole classroom community that, hey, all feelings are okay. You might feel upset one day, you might feel happy the other. And in this classroom, all feelings are valid. Show and tell is the classic activity when kids bring something from home to share with the class. Now, what you can do is just choose one or two students a day and just rotate with this. And why this activity is so great is because it tells us a lot about each student. So they're going to bring an item from home of their choosing, which will naturally tell us what they're interested in. So, whatever toy they pick or item they pick, odds are means something to them. Then the rest of the children are going to see that. We are automatically, just by seeing what they've brought, we are going to see what they're interested in. We are going to find some commonalities. You are going to ask the other children to make a positive comment or ask a question about that item. The person who is sharing is going to call on that student, the other students, by name, and they're going to make sure they're looking at each other, and you're getting this back and forth conversation, and you're getting some positive interaction between students already. Small groups can be ideal for differentiated instruction, and they're very well suited for social skills. Because when you shrink your audience from 25 kids to just 4 or 5, now you're giving those quiet kids the opportunity to find their voices. Because now there's fewer people watching, it's just less pressure, and they feel more safe taking a risk. In small groups, you really can't hide anymore. And because they're physically closer, they're able to hear each other and respond to each other in a better way than the whole classroom. Small groups are great for active problem solving, building ideas off of one another, and learning that their contributions really matter because they're going to get a lot of talk time in. Small groups are also a great opportunity for the teacher to observe and really notice how students interact with one another. You can see how misconceptions can arise. You can see the vibe between students and getting an understanding of how they not interact with the material and interact with each other. So here are some low prep activities you can do when your students are in small groups. This or that. This is a fan favorite of all my students. All it is just papers with two choices. So you can have text for your older learners or more advanced learners. You can have pictures for your early learners. And all you do is fold the paper, put them upside down on the table. Then the students take turns picking one at a time. The student will pick one. They will think in their brain which one that they prefer, but they don't say it yet. The rest of the kids have to rely on what they know about that student who's holding the card. They have to think from the perspective of the student who's holding the card to make a guess at which item they would choose. Okay, so if it's running or jumping, they have to resist the urge to just say what they would rather choose and think, what would their peer be choosing? Then, after everybody guesses, the peer with the paper tells everybody what it is. Two truths and a lie can be done with no materials or just paper and pencils. The kids write down two things that are true about themselves, one thing that is false, and the others have to guess what the false statement is. Now, how this is a social skills activity is because you're relying on the self awareness of the children actually doing it, self-reflecting. What do I know about myself? What are some things I like? What are some things I do? Then when they're guessing about their peers' false statement and true statements, they have to use their social awareness, their perspective taking. What do I know about that person? What have they said before? What do I think that they would enjoy? That's going to give you a clue of what they're going to guess. So you just put simple things like, I love Hawaiian pizza. I have two cats. I go to the camp in summer. Simple things to, again, get some commonalities and have some fun in a very low pressure way, but we're just always getting to know each other under fun circumstances. Never Have I Ever is another one where we learn about each other. It's a very fun way to increase that social awareness. The kids are presented with just some scenarios like, never have I ever fallen asleep in school. And then some would say never if they never have. Some would put up I have if they have. And then you can mix in silly ones like that to a little bit more serious ones or things that you are curious about. I would also encourage the kids to write down their scenarios, and that's always really fun. And just keep a jar of them and just keep it handy in your classroom. Emotion headbands. This is the game you play just like the regular headbands games, but what you're going to do is intermix emotions in with the cards. So instead of having like a picture of an apple on your head, or you can do it after you have a picture of an apple on your head, you put an emotion. For example, in the slide here, it says silly. So the boy here with the silly headband has to listen to his peers give him scenarios in which they think he would feel this way, silly. So it's not how they situations in which they would feel silly, but I have to think about this boy in the picture. What would he find silly? Or if it were nervous or worried or excited or embarrassed, what would they find embarrassing? And give different scenarios. Awkward Moment is a game for your slightly older kids, like upper elementary and middle and high school kids. And in this game, kids take turns matching potential reactions. They have reaction cards of their peers given a certain awkward moment. So, this is excellent for really talking about the nuances of social situations and awkward situations. And it's a really good discussion opener. You can say, oh, has this ever happened to you before? What would you do? And the cards are funny. Again, all of these games, you have to have the context of fun or enjoyment, or they're not going to do it and it's not going to stick with them. You need the buy-in, so you have to put all of these social learning opportunities in the context of a fun game. This is a really good one. I also have my kids write their own awkward moments, and it's funny. This is what you should do. And then the people can answer it. You want to relate it back to things that could happen to them or may have happened to them, things you're curious about, because you want this to be really relevant to their lives at the moment. Brain breaks. Brain breaks are quick, structured breaks using physical movement or mindfulness or sensory activities. Here are some fun movement based activities that target social skills. Emotion charades. This is a high energy game, and all you need here are slips of paper with emotions and slips of paper with actions. The kids take turns picking one emotion, one action, and they portray both of those things. So, this is working on emotion recognition, identifying emotions. Okay, so if they have angry, they have to think, how can I convey angry? What does it look like? What does my body have to do? What does my face have to look like? The other kids are deciphering that facial expression and that body language. And it's really fun because you're going to have random things like playing baseball while embarrassed, and it's the kids are going to laugh. Again, we're usually going for laughter here. Kinesthetic conversation. Basically, this is a way to get kids conversing with one another in a movement based way. So I use bean bags. I've also used crumpled up pieces of paper and other sorts of like suctiony toys. Use what you think your kids will think is fun. And what they do is they get in a circle and they throw the bean bag at one of the conversation starters. So it might say something like, if I had $1 million. So they throw the beanbag, it lands there, and they say, if I had $1 million, fill in the blank, I would buy a Lamborghini. Okay. After they've shared with us, again, self awareness, they have to ask a peer by name. So get the attention of another peer. Peer, if you had $1 million, what would you do? Then that person answers. Then that person takes the beanbag and they repeat the process. Detective. Detective is a game of social deduction via astute observation. What happens is you get your kids in a circle, usually sitting on the floor, but they could be in chairs or on their desks. One student leaves the room. The rest are in that circle, and someone is chosen to be the lead, and they start a very simple gross motor movement. For example, clapping. So that lead student starts clapping. The rest of the kids also clap because they're following that lead. When the lead student changes the action, for example, from clapping to tapping the nose, the rest of the students also change and do what the lead person is doing. Whatever the lead person does, the rest of the kids follow suit. The person who left the classroom comes back in, has to watch the group doing these movements, and has to figure out who is the lead, who is in charge of changing the actions. And the only way you're going to be able to figure this out is by really observing everybody's body language and their facial expressions and being mindful and slowing down and try to make an educated decision about it. It can be difficult depending on how good your lead is and how good the other kids are. The other kids who are following the lead also need to be aware of their surroundings and aware of each other. They don't want to be looking straight at the lead student and giving it away. So it's an exercise of self-regulation and of social observation. Now, how do we also tie this into whole group instruction or academics? Because there are several discrete games and activities we can do, but we also need to teach the academic content. How do we get the social learning embedded into the academic content? Let's look at things individually. For example, math. Math is all about solving problems. So Solve problems in a collaborative way. Have the kids get in groups and help each other. Encourage lots of peer to peer questioning. They can ask you, but maybe there's a student next to them that could help them out, and they can see, hey, this person knows more about this than I do. I know more about this than they do, and they can really help each other. You want to praise, acknowledge the process of talking to each other and of trying to figure things out. You don't want to have a competitive atmosphere because you really want, again, the kids to feel like they're on a team and they can all help each other and succeed by helping each other. Language arts instruction is great for social learning. When you are reading books, you can explore characters more deeply by asking questions like, why do you think this character is acting this way? Try to get in the mind of this character. What circumstances would make this character act this way? You can use role plays for this. You can also act out different scenarios. Maybe you want to act out, what if this character did something differently? What would happen? And act it out and explore the emotions around that circumstance. Also, when you're looking at characters, you can encourage journaling from the character's perspective to build some more emotional insight into that. Another question to ask is, can you relate to this character? And if so, how? In what ways? Is it by actions? Is it by family background? Is it by location, culture? How can you relate to this character or not? Also, it's interesting to ask students if they care about characters. Why or why not? When they think about why they might like a character, they're inevitably thinking about their own personal values and what's important to them, to see if they share any of that with the characters. And this, again, is part of that self awareness. What do I value? And what do I see in others as valuable? Science relies so much on partner work for experiments and for exploring new things. So, this also lends itself really well to social learning. I do a lot of experiments with my social skills group, and I always have a written out, it can be visual or it can be just text, but a written out procedure of what we're going to do. And I group the students and I tell them they have to negotiate with their partner or with their small group who's going to do what. Because what happens a lot in groups is that one student dominates and one student just takes a back seat. And what we want to do is teach kids how to work in a group. It's not enough for us to say, get in a group and start working. How does that work? How do we do that? That's a missing piece that a lot of us don't take the time to help our students understand. So what we want to do is make it easy for them by having a clear procedure, giving them time to negotiate and not rushing the process. So they have to make sure that everyone's okay with what they're going to do. And then afterwards, debrief how it went. Let's not put a lot of pressure for making everything go perfectly. It's okay if they say, we didn't work very well together. Okay, so why? What can we learn from that? If they did work well together, what was it about? Get specific. What was it? Well, he listened to me, or he let me do this, or she offered to do this part that I didn't like. There's a lot of different things. You want to welcome the discussion. For the subject of history, you can have your students write or speak from a perspective of a historical figure. That would be very interesting. And you can have them think if they would have made similar choices as that historical figure, or have some empathy and compassion for what that historical figure went through. Another thing that I like to do is debates with my students, but I do it slightly differently in the sense of I like to first see which side students gravitate towards. So, to put a very simple example, I might ask, who likes cats and who likes dogs? And if I see a person is like a firm dog lover, I'll have that person debate why cats are the better pets. So this is making it more challenging for them and having them rely on thinking outside of of themselves and thinking about how other people could think differently. Art. Art can be great for building emotional awareness. How does this art make you feel? Create something that makes you feel a certain way. Do you like this art? Does your friend like this art? Why not? Talk about it. There's no right or wrong answers. We're just sharing how we feel about a certain things and why. At the end of the day, I like to make sure that my students leave on a positive note. I want them to feel good about themselves and proud of themselves for doing the best they could that day. So, here's a couple things you can wrap up your day with. One is a compliment. You can ask your students, can you give a quick compliment to somebody in the classroom or a compliment to the class as a whole? Like, did we as a whole class do something well today? Or maybe a compliment to yourself. Also, what was your favorite thing about today? Normally, if you ask that question, students are going to pick something that they did well, that they feel proud of themselves for. So ask them what their favorite thing was, and they're going to reflect on that and feel good. This is really good for self esteem. And finally, you can ask them, what's something you're looking forward to? Because maybe their whole day was a disaster, and maybe there's nothing that they don't want to think about their day. They just want to move forward. Is there anything you're looking forward to? Even if it's just going home, or even if it's just seeing a friend at the bus stop, it can be the most simple thing. There's got to be something that they're looking forward to after their day. So here's what I'm asking you to consider. What if we made social skills education as important as reading and math? What if we started measuring the health of relationships in our classroom alongside test scores? What if we recognize that teaching students to care about each other is the foundation that makes all other learning possible? So, your action plan is to pick one part of your day, whether it be morning meeting, a small group, a whole group, a break, and implement one of the social skills games or activities we talked about today. See how it feels, see how your students respond, and then add another one and keep integrating it until you find a rhythm that fits with your classroom and your learners. Because healthy, positive, peer to peer relationships are your best behavior management tool. Thank you so much for your time today. If you're curious about what other things we do in my group, you can find me at teachsocialskills.com or on Teachers Pay Teachers, Teach Social Skills by Diana Cortez, BCBA.